Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today's video is all about my January wrap-up. Join me as I fill out my monthly spread for January, see all the books I read this month, and then add to some other pages in my journal. Let's get started. First things first, let's start off by filling in my book log. As you can see, I've already added in my first book of the month, Throne of Glass, so let's add the rest. I had a great start to my reading year this month, and ended up reading 7 books, which is a little out of the ordinary for me. Normally, I only read 3 to 4 books a month. I think that having this journal and knowing how much time and effort I spent creating it has really incentivized me to read more, and has also made me really excited to fill out each month, which is really fun and rewarding. Another thing that contributed to more reading this month is that both my husband and I noticed recently just how much excess time we were spending doom scrolling on our phones, and we've both made a conscious effort to instead set a half hour or an hour aside every day to read. It's been a wonderful experience for both of us so far, and we plan to continue this effort moving forward. The books I read this month were all really great and included Throne of Glass, Payback's a Witch, Valendi, A Fate Inked in Blood, Wink Poppy Midnight, First Test, the graphic novel, and finally, The Revenant. As you can see, 2 books really stood out to me this month. Both Wink Poppy Midnight and The Revenant were 5-star reads, which is going to make picking the best book of the month challenging, but we'll get more into that later. Next, let's add the book covers to my visual tracker. Here I've got all the covers printed out and pre-cut to size. I believe they are 1 inch wide by 1.5 inches tall, and I'm simply going to use a stick of trusty white school glue to stick them to my page. I'm also going to add the rating underneath. This looks so nice already, and it's going to be so exciting to see how these pages look at the end of the year. Next, let's add in our book cover for Book of the Month. If you saw my last video of my full journal flip through, you may remember me saying I realized that these 2 spreads might end up looking similar at the end of the year, but that there was always a possibility that I ended up reading more than 1 5-star book in a month and could only pick 1. Well, that happened this month. It was a really tough choice to pick between Wink Poppy Midnight and The Revenant, because they were both really incredible books. But in the end, The Revenant won out. Maybe we'll see both of these again in the best of the year spread later on. Let's move on and fill out my monthly spread for January. One thing that I realized that I forgot to add in both my stats spread and on these monthly spreads was total pages read. So I'm going to cut this circle in half so that the top is for total books read and the bottom is for total pages read for the month. Here, I'll add in the best and worst books. Again, The Revenant was the best, and I've put First Test, the graphic novel, as my worst for the month. I'm a huge fan of Tamora Pierce's novels. They are my comfort reads, and I just love her characters and stories so much. Saying that, The Protector of the Small series is probably my least favorite of her series altogether. And although the graphic novel was really fun, I felt it left out a lot of the nuance that the novel had. If you're a fan of the series or Ms. Pierce's work though, I definitely recommend this book. Next, I'm again adding in the books read this month with the date I finished reading each book, the total pages of each book, and the rating. Then I'm adding up the pages read and adding it to that half circle along with the number of books read this month. Lastly, I'm going to add a little dot of color that corresponds to the genre of each book that I read to my little monthly calendar here at the top. I think next year, if I make another reading journal, I want to make my monthly spreads over 2 pages so that I can make a larger calendar to better track each book I'm reading from the start to end date. For now, I'm going to leave my monthly reflection blank and come back to it another time. Now we're going to fill out some fun stuff, starting with these stats pages. On the books read per month graph, we're going to fill it in to show that I've read 7 books this month. Next, I read 2 physical books, 1 ebook, and 4 audiobooks. I'm going to just pencil these in and fill it in completely at the end of the year. For books by the page, I read 3 books in the 100 to 200 plus page bracket, 1 book in the 300 page bracket, and 3 in the 400 page bracket. In the genre graph, I read 3 fantasy novels, 1 YA novel, 1 historical fiction, 1 romantasy, and finally 1 graphic novel. Lastly, in When Was It Written, I have 1 in the 2000s column, 1 in the 2010s column, 1 in the 2015s, and 4 in the 2020s. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of my journal, to the books to read spread. One of my goals was to read 5 books from this list, and I managed 2 this month. I'm just going to add a little box here next to the author column and check off both The Revenant and A Fate Inked in Blood. On the next page, I read one of my recommended reads, Payback's a Witch, and I'm adding in the rating. This was a really fun little fantasy LGBTQ romance novel that I absolutely loved. It was a real contender for Book of the Month before the other 2 came along, and I'm really looking forward to reading the other books in this series. Thanks for the suggestion, Tristan. Next, let's fill out my 2025 bookshelf with all the books I read this month. Here, I'm simply going to add the title of each book, then fill it in with the corresponding color based on its genre. Unfortunately, my video cut out while I was filling in my 2025 bookshelf, but here you can see I added in First Test and A Fate Inked in Blood. Let's continue. I can't wait to see this at the end of the year. Turning the page, I'm now going to fill out my series tracker spread. I started a few new series this month and continued with one from the previous year. I'm going to add each series, then draw these little circles to indicate how many books are in each series. Circles that are fully blacked out indicate books read previously, and ones that are grayed in indicate that I'm currently reading the series. Lastly, let's flip all the way to the end of my journal and fill out some of the media I've consumed this month. For the TV shows and series watched, you can already see that I've added Pop Culture Jeopardy, but I'm also going to add Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 6 and The Queen's Gambit to the list. I'm going to wait and add the rating for Jeopardy and Star Trek when I finish the series, but The Queen's Gambit was definitely a 5 out of 5 rating from me. The other 2 have been excellent so far as well. Turning the page, I'm going to add Snatch and Night at the Roxbury to my movies watched page. These 2 movies could not be more different from each other, but they were both really great. Night at the Roxbury is a guilty pleasure comedy favorite of ours. Over on the Besties Binge Watch page, I've added in Three Body Problem, which I started with my friend earlier this month. So far, we're both really enjoying it. And that's it for my January wrap-up. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next month when we wrap up my reading for February. If you like what you see, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Happy reading, and see you again soon. Bye!